as a congregation, and I mean us as a congregation. That's something we have to always be mindful of. You know, we support a Bible school in India. Actually, Pastor Ted just finished the graduation, but that's us. That's just not Pastor Manova and Beulah and his family over in India just trying to make it work and us sending some money. That is us together, partnering with what God says. Put your investment in, put your time in, put your prayers into. So we have to be mindful of that today. And so we're gonna have a chance to share with them. I just assure you it's not me taking a nap and you guys talking amongst yourselves today. There's a strategy here. I do bring you greetings on behalf of Pastor Russ, our lead pastor, and his wife Yana. They just want to thank everyone for their support over the last few days. I think as many as 10 days or so now. Since Garrett and his passing, and so continue to hold them up in your prayers. I want to make two things aware for all of us, or make us aware of two things today. More details will follow next week, but there's two things you need to know. Number one, whereas our pastor was on sabbatical and was scheduled to come back on April 1st, he won't be here on April 1st. But the second thing, and more importantly, I want you to know, he will be back. I know that's been a concern for a number of you. You voiced it directly to him on occasion, some of you. So just rest assured that while this obviously has been a blow, they both are very confident in their faith that God is working a miracle through even this tragedy, and they will be back. You guys hear that? Let's say it together. They will be back. Thank you. I want everyone just to breathe easy on that. I know that that's a concern and just you know, something that you feel in your heart for the pastor, but prayer is what makes the difference in this, okay? They appreciate your casseroles, but their family is gone now, so we're going to tailor some of that back, you know? But your prayers are more than anything right now. Obviously, we are a little lower in crowd today. That's in no small part due to the fact that 65 of us are on a retreat. Shiloh went to PEI this weekend, and we're believing for this to be a great time for them as well to heal a little bit. You know, they're taking some of the news hard, obviously, because it's a part of their age group. But again, God is going to see us all through this as we lean upon one another. Amen? So, I need that doll. I know. I already threw you off the bow tie. Now I have a doll in my hand. I don't know if Angela Watson is here today, but we're celebrating missions today. She works a lot of Sundays, but she makes these incredible knitted dolls, and she's been sending these with us all over the world. They've gone to Zambia, I believe. They've definitely gone to Ukraine on a number of occasions, and she's doing a batch for Nain as well. And I just want to thank her. I mean, she does like a garbage bag full of these, and this cannot be a quick little project. So we want to honor her today because it's a great thing, and it just reminds me, we have a very talented church, and God has uniquely made you to do certain things. This is one of her, I would say, I'm not going to even say a small gift, because this would be a lifelong project for me, and it would not come out like this. That I'm really confident. I made one really long scarf one time, actually, I didn't finish it because I didn't know how to end it. So it's still probably got the needles in it somewhere in Mom's closet. But I just want to honor her for that. If you do see her, you know Angela, just reach out and give her your appreciation to her. A few other things we want to make mention of and celebrate today. I know all of you have been praying for Wad, Nagum, and Anis. That is our family. I don't want to call them our refugee family any longer. But they are our family. They are in Jordan, and they just passed the last phase, which was passing their medicals. So, yeah. So we're expecting them in mid-April. We don't have a firm date yet. You will know of it because we will be having a party when that happens. So that's exciting. I also want to know if Aisha Goodrich, Andreen Brown, and Eileen Tutong are here. If you are, stand up. There. Where else? There. Is Andreen here today? Oh, she's working. She's working. They received their Canadian citizenship this week. So we celebrate with them. Other than that, there's just two brief announcements. There's Easter breakfast tickets available for your kids. That's in the walkway today. And there's a ladies' retreat you can sign up for and register for, and that's in both foyers today. And I think that's all for announcements, I think. But we're good. Okay? Thank you, worship team. Great job today. I'll give you this back, my baby. Well, today we're going to interview two groups, two families essentially, a single lady and also a family, concerning something that is developing in their hearts, and I will say in the heart of our church family with respect to Nain, Labrador. Now, for those of you that don't know, Nain is a northern community in Labrador. It's very isolated, and we've actually been partnering there for a number of years. I think we've been going, Rick, 12 years? Yeah, 12 years we've been there. And we've actually been partnering with Ray and Juanita Whalen. Many of you would know Ray. He's 70-some years old, going on, I think, 23. He's a little spitfire kind of guy. He's really encouraging in the faith. And they felt strongly to go and be a part of the community in Nain. And we've been going as go teams there pretty well ever since they've been up there. And as that's happened and as that's been developing, it's kind of like when we went to Jordan and some of our church family met Wad, Nagum, and Annis. There just is something God was doing there. And you couldn't necessarily put your finger on it to any great degree. I'm not even saying we've got our finger on it right now, but we know that God is calling us in some way to partner there even more than what we've done to date. And he's been speaking to two groups as well within our church family. So we're going to interview them today. I want you guys to become familiar with it. And here's the goal of today. I want you to be inspired to go before the Lord in prayer. This is important for us to hear from God on before we do any endeavor. We always do it on a number of things. We want to, number one, feel that God is prompting us to go, to do something. We just don't want to do it on our own because it seemed like a good idea or there was a really cool commercial on TV. We don't do anything like that. But also, we want to go based on relationship. There is an importance, and I'm going to talk about this next week for us as a church family, there's an importance in doing things in accord, doing things in unity. And that's how we've grown up here. This was a big heart that Pastor Ted had for who we were to be as a church family, to always be in unity whenever possible. So we want to just seek the Lord on that. And I believe through all of our prayers, as we seek God together, God is going to uncover how we are to respond and what it looks like for us. We don't know what that is just yet, but we know that God has a plan, and we want to just find out what it is and walk in it. Amen? So that's what we're going to do today. I am going to ask Lynette Newton to come to the stage, and you guys are going to welcome her. Lynette is awesome. She's one of my heroes in the faith.
Nice tie.
Yeah, and you sit over on the couch now, sweetie. And she is the reason I'm wearing a bow tie this morning. You sit right here.
Okay.
So you're not too far away from me. She said that she would like to see me in a bow tie, and so I said I would wear one for her. And speaking of talent, this is a Leanne Fougier original. She makes these. She's right back here. She is fantastic. And I might not be the best model for it, but she does make them, and she does a great job. And she's got a website and everything. And she's a part of our church family, so she believes in honoring God with the tithe. So I say, if you need a bow tie, you buy it from her. So you take that microphone right there. We're just going to chat today. This is not planned to any great degree. We just want to hear from Lynette. Lynette has been a part of our church family for
28, 29, 30 years.
And of that 30 years, how much of it was spent in China?
25.
25 years. Lynette has been a missionary for 25 years, but has always stayed connected with this church family. Even when she was away, she made sure to keep us updated. Whenever she's been home, she has been one of our key and chief volunteers in the office. In fact, she puts in as many hours as many of our paid staff, and she's fantastic. And I will say, she always contributed to the household with respect to her tithe. She felt that this, yeah, go ahead. There's one tither. She always felt that this was her home church, that this was her covering, and therefore, this was where she was to honor God. And I honor you for that. That speaks a lot to who you are as a person. Now, you're home, and we've already shared with the church family that you feel the season for China is over. Now, let's talk about what God has been developing in your heart and why perhaps that season is now over.
In China?
In China.
Okay. Because the mission was accomplished.
Yeah, I agree.
And when we went, and I say we because we went to China, there were no known Nasu believers. And the Lord called me to join with a church planting organization. And I worked there in that capacity. And there is now a network of house churches in through the mountains of the Daliangshan, where the Lord sent me. And they are autonomous, and they are growing, and they have a Bible college for their young pastors coming up. They are reaching out, and they are sustainable. And so when the Go Team last came in 2016, we passed the baton, as it were, to the Nasu Church, and we went and we did a final push to the final place where there was a massive stronghold of shamanism and witchcraft, and we partnered with the Nasu Church, and and mission accomplished.
That's awesome.
Mission
That's
accomplished.
awesome. Amen.
So then, like, I always thought I was going to die in China. I kind of did every day, but
We did too, and we were wondering how we were going to get you back. I actually this is terrible to say, but this is part of my job. I actually did a little bit of research that if that did happen, how we would repatriate you back here for the funeral.
Well, it was in my will.
So that's how committed we all were to that idea.
I had it in my will, just burn me and leave me where I fall.
Well, I didn't know that part.
Yeah. I have had a passion for our First Nations and our Inuit people ever since I can remember. And when I was in Bible college, if you asked me where I was going after Bible college, because that Bible college was geared to missions, I would have said either to the Inuit, our First Nations, or to the street people in downtown Vancouver, where there were a lot of First Nations people. And so when God called me to China, it was a big surprise. And so it's not a big surprise when he turned around and said, your mission in China is accomplished, it's finished. Now I've got something else for you. And I went out with blessing from the organization that I was with, Target Ministries, and our leader, he saw me with twins. And so the Nasu was the firstborn twin, and the Inuit the second, and I believe God trained me in China for Nain.
Yeah, I agree, and I think that's an important component. God will always build upon the things that he gets us to do in life, right? Because there's a long-term plan that he's developing, not just through us, but in connection with all the other people that he's going to put in place in different areas. So I firmly believe what has taken place in Nain up to this point was a precursor and kind of is paving the way for what's next.
Yeah.
And I can't think of someone more qualified to go into that specific situation, because there's a lot of spiritual element to what is taking place up north and with our First Nations people. And in those communities, just because they're so isolated as well, that God really has developed you for, I would say, this season. Would you agree?
I would agree.
Yeah. Now tell me about you in Nain, you going there. What was impression, what did you feel God laying upon your heart, if anything?
Well, actually, because I thought I was going to die in China, when I went to Nain the first time, I loved it. I just, I just fell in love with the people. And before I went, I remember saying, we were seeing off a Nain team one time when I was home, and I said,
A go team.
A go team. And I said, that's one team that I would really like to go on. And I don't know whether it was Rick or Pastor Russ overheard me, and they said, you're on, next trip, you're on.
That's
and
great.
So it was a dream come true for me to go to Nain. And I just saw the spiritual darkness there, the dryness of the people and the dryness of some of the servants who were serving there. And it breaks your heart. The people are so lovely. Of course, when God calls you somewhere, he gives you a love for people, right?
Yeah.
And I just fell in love. I fell in love.
That's great.
And it wasn't until I was in China that God actually called me to Nain. I didn't have that there. All I knew that I had a love, but I didn't feel that he didn't call me didn't let me know, because he knew I would have just failed utterly if I went back to China knowing that I was going to be called, that I was going to be going to Nain. Like, that just doesn't work for me. I have to be 100% where I am.
Of course. Now, trusting God for this, obviously you've been over to Nain a few times now. How many times have you been there? Twice. Tell us a little bit about that experience. I mean, you mentioned some of the spiritual things you're feeling, and I want to say this. When we say we feel spiritual things when we go into an area, that's not a mark against any people. You understand that, right? There's a spiritual element to Sackville. We just don't notice it because we're in it all the time. And God helps us to understand a few of these things because we know from God's word we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, right? But against principalities and powers. So we want to be aware of these things, but don't ever think for 1 second that we're saying anything disparaging regarding people. People are lost in all sorts of situations. They're lost right here, right outside these doors, our mission field, I may add, right? So we need spiritual eyes to see all of these things so that we could do our utmost to believe that God will move through our hearts. But so you've been there twice. Give me just some of your initial impressions about the lay of the land. Maybe just explain to people what it even looks like there.
Okay, so it's like a little bay with a plug in the front, which is an island, Paul's Island out front. And then there's a little, like a scallop shape or a crescent shaped beach with settlement starting near the water's edge and going up the hill. And then it's completely surrounded by mountains all around. And spiritually, there are mountains all around too, and powers and principalities have had reign in that place for a long time. And I really do believe that what Ray and Juanita established there and what the Pentecostal church has established there has been key for us going in. I mean, they have established a beachhead, and we're going to go in and land on there with the Marines, and we're going to take some land there, and we're going to do it all by the power of God. It's not me. It's the Spirit within me, and it's the warrior that is within me that will rise up and address those powers and principalities so that people can be free to come into the things of God that he has for them.
That's very cool. So the Pentecostals are there. Tell us about the church there. So there's a Pentecostal church. That's the Pentecostal Assemblies of Newfoundland Church. Who else?
And there's some Mennonites there, too. They send a couple in every 2 years. And they're from out west, I think Manitoba, or Alberta. And they stay for 2 years. So just as they're beginning to establish relationships, they get replaced. So,
that's tough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But they're there. They're standing and they're occupying. And see, occupation is a really important thing. You can't go into some place and take ground and then not occupy it, because if you don't occupy it, the enemy comes right back in.
Right.
Okay, so the Ray and Juanita left 3 years ago, and then Pastor Junior and Ivy left 2 years ago.
Those are the Pentecostal
The Pentecostals, right. And so there was nobody there, in that kind of a church situation for 2 years. And so that created a big vacuum, which was really hard on the believers of Nain. That's been really hard for them. And there's also Moravian Church. The Moravian Church is a German church. It was planted in the 1700s by missionaries, and it is run by elders who are Inuit themselves. And that church is just sitting, waiting for the Spirit of God to land on it and raise it up. It's like the dry bones of Ezekiel 33. He's going to breathe on those dry bones, and they shall become a mighty army.
I agree.
And they will go forth. They will go forth all up and down the Nain coast, and they will go across the Arctic and then down. Nain is just 1,400 people, roughly. And God is putting a lot of resources into this community for a reason. And it's not just for that community. Right. It's for the whole coast of Labrador, and it's for all the Inuit across Canada, and then down through the First Nations people in Canada, and maybe even down to the. But God has a big plan.
I agree. I agree. And what's important for all of us to know too is that, like I said before, we always do our best to do things based on relationship. And actually, the relationship amongst those ministries, in no small part due to Ray, I mean, we've had some exposure there. You've developed some friendships there, specifically with the Pentecostal ministers. So I'm grateful for that too, because it takes all of us. It's not one church going to reach Sackville or Halifax. It's all the churches doing their part, because it's interesting how people connect with different people, and it's just, different styles of worship speak different people's languages. So so we celebrate them as well. And so I'm going to ask the Christensens to come down, but I don't want you to leave. Okay. I just want you to, when they come down, just to slide on over. But so you feel strong in your heart God's doing something to say, Nain's your next post?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
There's no doubt in my mind. I'm going to Nain.
Okay. Yeah.
We are going to Nain.
And do we know what that looks like as far as accommodations or anything like that?
It'll happen suddenly.
Yeah.
It'll happen fast. And just looking at a couple of different things, maybe to get in by creative access through social services, or through being a teaching assistant or something like that. These are just some thoughts that are rolling around in my head right now. And so we'll be looking in the next few weeks to be looking into that there.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and we want to be plugged in with both the PAON church and with the Moravian church and with the Mennonites. Like, want to be in unity with them.
We're going to do a little bit of a shuffle. Okay. So I'm going to get you to stand up. This is what the commercial breaks for on the TV shows are. And then if I could get you boys to sit on those chairs, because I want you guys to be able to be seen back there, but I'm going to have some questions for you fellas as well. And yeah, we'll watch them for you. You guys sit here. You move down one. Let her sit on the end, and then they have production people and camera people to do all this at the other spots right here. So let's welcome the Christensens. We're back from our commercial break. So, John, I want you to go ahead and introduce your family for us, those that are here with us.
Okay. So I'm John Christensen. This is my wife, Joanne Christensen. This is Samuel Christensen, and this is Jonathan Christensen.
That's right. Keep going. You have two others.
And I also have Ronik Christensen, who's my son, and Alexander. And we do have a fifth boy who's in the States. He lives on his own. That's William Christensen.
Right on. So now tell us how long you guys have been attending the church together.
Well, we were married in 2004, and we've been here since then. I'm actually from Chicago. Joanne and I met online a long time ago. I'd never been to Canada before, and I'd only known Joanne in person for 10 days. I came up and visited, and we got married 2 months later in Badek, and that was 2004, and it was quite a whirlwind, and really, if we get into the details of it, it's quite remarkable.
It is remarkable. And I will say, just from a pastoral perspective, not 100% recommended.
No.
Just,
No.
okay? God's hand was on this, and he does amazing and strange things all the time, but they're unique very often. Don't come up here and tell me you just met someone online because you searched them up while I was talking to the Christians here, okay?
Right?
So, now you've been involved in our church since that time in a number of different capacities. What are some of the things that you've helped us with over the years?
Well, I used to do Spectrum Extreme when they had that a long time ago, Extreme Kids and whatnot. And we also did the Celebrate Recovery.
Mm-hmm.
We did that for about 6 years here. I'm an alcoholic. I've been sober since 2003. And so when I moved up here, I wanted to do a Christian-based recovery program.
Yeah.
And so actually, the one we ran here at this church was the first registered Celebrate Recovery in all of Nova Scotia. Mm-hmm. So really, for the church, it was the first, right?
Yeah, and I will say this. So this is a lot of times how our church operates. We don't always get to be able to do it, but when God puts something on someone's heart and they come, just like John and Joanne did, I mean, we had no thoughts of being a Celebrate Recovery, you know, and not in a wrong way. We just never gave much thought to any sort of addictions help. But because they were passionate about it, we were willing to explore it. And out of that, Celebrate Recovery started, and the natural offshoot from that has been Restore, which continues to this day. So I honor you guys for hearing the Lord on that, because I know it has helped and been a part of many of the lives of the people that are in this room, but even others that aren't necessarily connected with this church. So I do thank you for that on behalf of Pastor Russ and all of us, certainly. Now, talk to me about Nain. When did this start? How did this come about? This thought that maybe God might be doing something for you guys.
Well, like I said, I told you this morning, I'll read you the original email that I sent to Pastor Russ that began all this stuff. So this was an email that I sent on Sunday, July 7th, 2013 at 1:21 p.m. So this would have been right after the church service.
I would say so. And knowing that service, I mean right after that service.
It was very odd. Pastor Russ, I'm writing to you to ask for help. During today's message from Ed,
Ed Dixon.
Ed Dixon, right? God spoke to me and put a vision in my head. He's spoken this to me before, but never given me a vision of it before. As Ed and the other fellows spoke, God impressed upon me the need he has for a person of my background. He has reminded me of all the things he has done for us as a family. He has spoken to me that the time is coming to trade in all that we have for a different gift. As I write this and replay in my mind, I cannot tell you how deeply this affects my heart. He has asked that I raise the boys as soldiers on the front lines for the kingdom, not observers. I believe that he spoke to me through you, this would be Pastor Russ, when he said, listen to God and don't rationalize it if you feel it is something beyond your abilities. I have yet to speak to Joanne about it, and I will tonight. I have no idea where we are to go or what we are to do. I just know that he said when I chose to come here, he blessed us, but now it is time for greater things. Please keep this in confidence and know that I feel as if I am nuts. Still, I know what he's asked of me, and I would really ask for whatever help God speaks to you about this. So that day, as I wrote that, I actually ran upstairs after church, and just to be honest, I cried for a bit there, and I'm not sure why. That's not wrong. There's nothing wrong with that.
That's good. For this guy.
And it actually took me about 3 days to tell Joanne about it, because I didn't know how to explain it. And once we did, and we had talked about Nain, and I was actually heading to Nain in August there that year. And I told her what I think God wants us to do, and she was fine with that.
Oh, absolutely. So I just want to add, it goes back further than that. We went to our first missions trip to Nain together with Samuel at 2 months, and while we were
That's another
there-
thing we don't necessarily recommend, but God's hand was on that one too, okay? And Rick is right there to say yes and amen to that. Keep going.
So the experience that we had there, it was very overwhelming. It was very powerful. The people just have so much love. You can just feel it, and they really imprinted themselves on our hearts. And I remember at one point saying to John, you know, I could live here. I could really live here. The people are just so welcoming. It's beautiful there. It's pristine. It's pure there. The land, and it just really touched our hearts.
That's
That's
awesome.
I think where the first seeds were planted.
And that would have been
2006.
2006.
See, and I think I find that to be, like when we found out that Lynette wanted to go too, we got excited because her experience and her background is so much different because we're just people. That's all we are. And then there's Lynette, right? And so
She's a super person.
the way, the way that she sees it and her skills and her abilities and what she sees and what she wants to do is different than what we see it and how we look at it and how we view it and how we want to approach it. But the two actually marry so nicely. It's incredible. And you know, when we found out she wanted to come up and go with, it just made perfect sense. It's really, I mean, it's just like meeting a girl online and marrying her. All of a sudden, all of a sudden it happens,
You're
right?
gonna get me
And
in
away you
trouble.
go. I know that's not helpful.
So, yeah, when do you guys go to Nain? Soon, yeah, soon. So, throw me right off. So now, John, why? So this has been happening since 2006.
Yep.
In its ways. Why are you guys not in Nain already?
Oh, because when I went to Pastor Russ after I sent that email and I met with him, it is really important for me that, and I told him flat out, I said, unless this church sends us with their blessing, we're not going.
Right.
And so I don't move forward with anything until either you or Pastor Russ says to me, okay, you can go forward with this. I mean, it's really been a very slow-moving, arduous trek to get to this point, and quite honestly, to have an idea of what you want to do and have the vision that was given, and then to not see it happen in the time frame that you'd like it to happen is it's upsetting at times, and it's difficult to remember if what you even heard was, did you really hear that, or was it something you made up in your head?
Yeah.
But again, you know, there's always something, and both of us have talked about it, and every time we've talked about, you know, maybe we should let this die and let's just do something else. For some reason, we just never do. We never do. And, you know, I think something this important and something this big really requires you to sit and just wait until the timing is put in front of you. And really, I can't imagine that it isn't going to happen.
Right.
And in fact, you know, it's been said in Presbytery, it was said, and,
Yeah, that's right.
It's twice to me it's been said that it will happen. And so, you know, you just have to have faith that wasn't a lie.
Yeah, that's very cool. A couple of things I just want to highlight for us. These are good things for us to learn and take in. First of all, you know, when you come to Jesus, your past is your past, but it's amazing what God will do with that towards your future. So John, you know, as he said here, he struggled with alcohol for a number of years. Sadly, that is not uncommon in our world, but definitely not uncommon in many of our northern communities. So it's interesting how God would use that, if I could call it a hurt, you know, in your life to affect change for someone else. The other thing I want to note is that, you know, we're not a dictatorship here. John and Joanne could have easily not sent Pastor Russ an email and went anyways. But they do recognize that God does place authority over our lives. I'm under authority too. We all are. But specifically in the context of a church family. And there is protection and covering that comes with that I believe that God ordains. So there's a strength in unity, but there's also a strength in all of us seeking the Lord and knowing when times are right, situations are right, because it can be a good thing in the wrong time and really not do any good, and potentially be detrimental to a family or a community. So we want to be sensitive to those things.
I think the other thing to keep bear in mind too is I mean, for us, once you go to Nain and you realize the kids and the people there, they're dying for us. They're dying for us to get there. And they're just waiting for someone to come and help them and to give them hope and to smile at them. You know, when we started in 2006, I think this is important for people to know too. 2006, when we went, a lot of the Inuit wouldn't even wave to us, wouldn't say hello, wouldn't do anything. And then when I went back in 2013 and I brought Ronak with me, you know, I'll tell you a cool story is we were at the community center one night, and they have a PlayStation there, PlayStation 3, for the kids to play, so you have to wait in line, and all the kids of the community, because obviously a PlayStation 3 is quite extravagant for up there.
Sure.
And so the kids all wait in the community center to play this game, and a kid gave up his seat to give it to Ronak, and so Ronak could play, because obviously they know he's a guest because he's a white kid. So Ronak is playing this kid, and the kid is just slaughtering Ronak in the game. And Ronak was getting really frustrated, and you could see it, and he saw it as well. And it was funny because he turned around and he winked at me, and then all of a sudden Ronak turned around and was winning the game. And the kid threw the game.
Right, cool.
Because he wanted to make Ronak happy.
Yeah, that's cool.
And, you know, to go from that in 2006 to 2013 speaks to the amount of trust this church has built with Nain and with the people of Nain.
Right, that's cool. So, what does this possibly look like for your family up there?
Well, here's what I want to do. All right. So what I'd like to do is, I would really like to build, like, one of the things that God spoke to me about is my health. Because obviously I've done a lot of awful things to my body that I probably shouldn't have done. And God has blessed me with amazing health. And it hasn't affected me in any way. And only God can do that, right? To take you out of that and leave you whole in the midst of everything you've done. And one of the things he spoke to me about is my health and my well-being. And I'm a pretty healthy fellow. And so what I do is I'd like to go, I have a lot of workouts that I do and stuff like that. And I'd like to bring that to the kids and get the kids involved and stuff like that. Because up there, you know, it's health is not a very big deal up there. And healthy foods, healthy eating, healthy lifestyle is very expensive and not practical for a lot of the people up there. So I believe that we can build greenhouses like a community, build it to a point where it's like a community business, and involve the people in the working there and turn it into something, you know, kind of like how Blooms did here in Halifax. Yeah. And I'd like to even get to a point where we are exporting stuff from Nain under the Nain name and bring some renown to the city. And my hope is, you know, to make the people healthier, better.
That's cool.
And with that, I know for me comes a better lifestyle, a better hope, and a better confidence.
That's cool. Joanne.
So nutrition is also a big part of that, and that's kind of my side. So I've been studying a lot about nutrition and how to get what you need with what you have. And so that's my big focus in that respect. I mean, we just have such a heart for the kids and for their future. And, we just feel God pulling us, that we have, I mean, we are nowhere near qualified to do anything like this. But we believe that God has placed some talents inside of us that can help us, or he can use us. And what our experiences and what we know to help make life better for those kids and for the adults as well. I guess for me, the kids are always the biggest pull. I'm
sure.
looking forward to the relationships with the adults as well, and I'm very excited about the mentorship with Lynette. Sorry. So for me, I said nutrition is
This
a
is a
big
part of the training process, too.
Yeah. I'm not as vocal as my husband.
Yeah, that's right.
But nutrition is a big part for me. I'm studying and learning ways to make the most of what you have and with what is available to have the greatest impact for nutrition. So, our hearts are with the kids, the adults as well, but for me, the strongest pull is the kids and their future ahead, to build on the hope and show them that, a different way of life, not, I don't know that that's the right way, but that there are things that we can do to improve the life that we have and the path that we've been given. And I think that God can use us to help them see that there are, there's hope. Everything is not, you don't have to follow the same path that your parents followed because that's all that's available to you. That there's more to life, and with the hope that God gives us and with the things that he provides for us, we can have a good life.
Now tell me about, as a mom, you hang on to that, your kids in Nain. Are you sure about bringing your kids to Nain? And that's a legit question because you've been there, I've heard stories. Tell me about that I'd like to hear mom's perspective on that.
So as a mother, you do have fear for your children. It doesn't matter where you go, there's always threat to your children. But with God's protection, and because we feel that he's calling us and our kids, that gives us, well, it gives me anyways, a calmness in my spirit about that. I know that God is going to watch over my children. I know he's going to protect them, and I know that they're going to thrive. Anyone who knows my children know they're not very shy, that they very easily make friends, that they have good, pure hearts, and they want to share God's love with people who don't have hope, who don't know what it is to never be alone, to always know that there's someone there that loves you and that you have value. And those are the things I believe that our children can contribute.
That's very cool.
And I know they'll do well because they're very easily adaptable to any situation. We've been through a lot in the last few years, and I believe, in my eyes, my boys are doing well. They're happy, they're healthy, and they love Jesus.
Yeah, they do. Boys, I'm going to compliment you too, specifically you two, because every Sunday I see you guys come down here and worship. You take opportunity to pray for each other. You guys aren't shy about that. And that speaks volumes to the little girl that stands beside me and watches you every week, but not just the younger kids. The older kids see it too. And you're being an example to even them. And I see how you guys pitch in and help around at the church. I saw you, Jonathan, volunteering here, running around with Mr. Bill, keys on your hip. He was here on Friday doing a whole bunch of custodial stuff for us, and they are good boys, and we congratulate you because you mean a lot to us. Well, here's what I'd like to do now. I'd like to take opportunity to not fall over. I'm gonna have you guys come down front here, if we could. Now, we're not sending anyone in this moment. We don't know what this looks like. They don't know what this looks like. But it does look like that God is doing something. John, you'll help Lynette here. God is doing something. That's all we know at this point. But we want to commit this to God in prayer. There's no time frame associated with this. We don't know what jobs look like for these guys. We don't know what living accommodations look like. We just know where it is on the map, to be quite honest with you, and a few of the players. God also has to knit these individuals together, but also knit them with the ministries that already exist there. We don't want to go in rogue and do our own thing. We do feel we have something to contribute through the lives of the Christensens and Lynette, absolutely. And I'll put a plug in for Go Teams here, Rick, and we thank Rick, of course, for helping with Go Teams and organizing that. There's certainly still something that we need to contribute and partner there, and who knows, maybe we're upping our involvement in Nain, even in Go Teams. It's funny to think like this because it's only in Newfoundland, but it is one of our most expensive Go Teams. It's more expensive than going to the other side of the world. It's harder to get there. It's more expensive to live there than it is in China. Everything comes up a notch. So as a church leadership, we're looking at those things. We want to be good stewards. We need God's help. And we know that if he says go, all of that will come to us. But I want you all to pray with us. We all can hear the voice of the Lord together. And we will know when it is time, it is time. And we'll know what to do when he tells us this is what's to do. So if I could have the church leadership, I encourage you, Gloria and all of our staff, our wives, Rick, please come. And let's just take a moment. Let's all stand to our feet, everybody. Let's just take a moment to come before the Lord in prayer, to believe together that God has his hand on this, that he is unfolding something amazing, and we want to hear his voice. We want to trust him in it. We speak protection over them, and we believe for God's best. In Jesus' name. Let's begin to stir yourselves up in the faith, congregation, and let's join